Hi, this is Wen. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate two Excel simulation exercises. So simulation is a very important technique that we use in operations management to obtain some insights into certain solutions that you're looking for. So in this specific context, we're trying to use this to model a simulation management process. It's not a rocket science, but you will see that this is actually a very, very interesting and very, very convenient way of modeling a decision-making scenario. So specifically, I'm going to be using this tool to demonstrate the following ideas. So in first video, I'm going to be showing how to get the service level and the fill rate. Both of them are very important measure when it comes to the inventory management. And the second exercises, I'm going to be demonstrating the process of obtaining an optimal inventory level. Okay, so take some time. This isn't exactly rocket science, but I do hope you can follow through the entire process and eventually be able to set up your own simulations and then understand what this is exactly all about. Okay, I'm not going to expect you to set up a new simulation in your final exam, but I'm just hoping that you, as a learner of this particular subject, at least take a look into this specific methods that you can use to model certain decision-making scenario. Okay, so there will be always spending at least 2 weeks of time to understand the inventory management process, because it's a very huge chapter. So I hope that this video exercises can help you get prepared for that big chapter that's coming from next week. Okay, so before I start to talk about the details, let's first take a look at a couple of Excel problems. So random number is a very important tool when it comes to simulation, because everything we deal in everyday life can be considered as a random. Okay, so there are essentially 3 different ways of generating a random number in Excel. So first one is the rand function. So rand function essentially can randomly generate a number between 0 and 1. Okay, let me do it again. Rand, open and close parentheses, and that's it. So after you press enter, it will generate a random number. Can be as little as 0, but can never be as big as 1. In other words, it's starting from 0 and right before it gets to 1. Okay, so you can generate as many random numbers as possible with this function, but the trick is whenever you do something else, those random number would get updated. Right? Whenever you do something else, it will actually get updated. So if you're trying to retain random number as is, the only way you can do that is copy it and paste them as values. Okay, copy it and paste them as values, not as the function. So this one, for example, will be a copy as a function. So they're changing, but they're not changing because those are being copied as numbers, the values only, not functions. So that's one way to generate a random number. The other way to generate a random number is by using rand between A and B. So you specify 2 integers, and this actually will help you generate 2 random number as little as A, as big as B. Okay, so for example, you can do rand between 0 to 100. So this will help you generate random number anywhere between 0 to 100. Okay, so that is the case. So that's the second way of doing it. And third way of doing it is by using data analysis toolpack. So if you remember how you enabled the solver last time, if you haven't enabled data analysis toolpack last time, and you can go back where you have enabled the solver, and you can also enable data analysis this time. Okay, you go there and here is a random number generator. So click OK, and here's specifying number of variables or number of columns you want to generate random number. So we're just going to tell one column, and number of random numbers. I'm generating 20 on the fly, and the advantage of this particular tool is you can actually specify the type of distributions for your random number. So for example, the previous two random number generation tools are basically using the uniform distribution, if you still remember what those are. But in here, you can specifically identify a distribution that you want to use in order to generate random numbers. So in other words, if you generate a random number using this tool, the random number you have generated will follow the normal distribution. So let me just generate 200, okay? And then I'm going to specify the mean as 50, standard deviation as 10, okay? And then you click OK. Before you click OK, make sure you specify the output range. So click here first, and then click A1, all right? And then click OK, and all the random numbers will be generated in A column. So we said that this is going to follow the normal distribution, right? So how do you verify that? How do you confirm that? Well, I think the easiest way to confirm that is by inserting a Excel chart. Go to Insert, make sure highlight A column first, and then go under Insert, and then first click Recommend Charts. Okay, make sure your column A is selected already, okay? And then click Recommend Charts, and this will pop up, right? And then you go this particular type of chart. This is called a histogram. If you click OK, as you can see, this actually resembles a normal distribution, the bell curve that you're familiar with, okay? But are they actually using the average and the standard deviation that we have specified earlier? We can see whether it did, okay? So average A to A, okay? Column A, entire column A. So to use A to A, you need to ensure there's nothing that you don't want when you calculate average. That's a trick. And standard deviation, it's going to be STDEV, STDEV. Just going to use P here, population. Okay, so they're not exactly 50 and 10, which are the values we have used to generate random number, but they're close enough. Okay, so those are three ways you can create a random number in a simulation. Okay, if you need more time, you can pause here and then move on to next step. The next function I'd like to introduce is the if function. So this can actually specify an action when expectation is met and is not met. So this is a pretty good example. So for example, this is basically what the formula is doing, or the function is doing. If, open parenthesis, demand number is bigger than the inventory number, okay, and then you will display value number 1, okay, and otherwise display value number 0. So in other words, if your demand is bigger than the inventory, please show me number 1 so that I know demand is bigger than inventory, and if it's not, show 0. Okay, so now you know what's the meaning of 1 and 0 is. And alternatively, you can ask Excel to display when this condition is true or when this condition is met, aka demand is bigger than or equal to inventory, display in stock, right? And otherwise you say stock out. Okay, let's do a couple of exercises here. So for example, if 3 bigger than or equal to 5. So now we all know 3 is not greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so you will say 1 and 0. So you can expect that this function will actually get evaluated by Excel it will say 0 because the condition here that we're trying to evaluate is not true, it's false. Therefore, it will display 0. Okay, I hope this logic makes sense to you. Okay, and let's try another example. If 10 less than or equal to 18, which is a true statement here, and then you say true, otherwise you will say false, like this. Okay, you say that, you see the difference here is I'm adding a quotation mark here to identify this is actually a string. This is actually not a number, but a string. Okay, then click enter. So this says display the true because the condition we're trying to evaluate is actually true, which is 10 is actually less than or equal to 18. Another thing, say demand here, let's say it's 10, and supply or inventory is 30. Okay, and if you like to evaluate whether this is a stock out or in stock situation, you can do if this cell bigger than equal to this, you'll say in stock, otherwise you'll say stock out. Okay, so I think D5 is actually smaller than 30. Therefore, this is not true, right? This is not true. Therefore, this will get displayed. So all the parameters in Excel functions, when you have more than one parameters in Excel functions, each parameter will need to get separated by a comma sign, okay? Comma symbol. So click OK, click enter, or click here, either way is fine, here, or click enter, either way is fine. So as you can see that now we can determine this is in fact a stock out situation. Okay, so the last example or last Excel function that I'd like to show you before we jump into the simulation is the round function. Okay, round function. So we need round function to round number to the integer in the later when we start to do this. So the round function is actually helping you round a number to a specific number of digits. So number, you supply the first parameter, that's your number you'd like to round, and you need to specify in the second parameter how many number you'd like to leave after decimal point. So for example, in this case, if you type this, round 34.56 to the 0th digit, meaning do not leave anything after the decimal point. So basically you obtain an integer, okay? And in here, the same number, but you'd like to keep only one number after decimal point, so this will be evaluated as a 34.6, not 5. Okay, and here you only have 2 digits already, but if you like to round it to the 3 numbers after decimal point, it will just display as many as it have. Okay, so please pause your video here. Try to make yourself get familiar with all these Excel formulas. Okay, the random number generator, 3 random number generators, and 1 f function, and 1 random function. So once you get familiar with all these functions, and steps coming beyond here will be much easier for you to understand. Okay, I'll conclude first video here.